U.S. businesses are projected to spend somewhere between 35 and $40 billion on AI initiatives by late 2025. I mean, just let that number sink in for a second.
Yeah, it's a completely staggering amount of capital shifting all at once.
Right. It's a massive tectonic shift. But here is the terrifying part for, whoever is actually signing those checks. According to the latest research, up to 95% of enterprise generative AI pilots are currently returning exactly $0 to the bottom line.
Wow, which is just a massive reality check. I mean, we were seeing this absolute flood of investment basically meeting a brick wall of execution.
Welcome to the special Amplified Impact Deep Dive. If you are a corporate leader listening to this right now, you are likely living inside that exact tension.
Oh, absolutely.
You're hearing all this breathless hype about what AI can theoretically do, and you might even be the one approving these massive departmental budgets for it.
Yeah.
But you're sitting in board meetings quietly wondering why you aren't seeing, undeniable changes in your revenue or your operational efficiency.
Right. And you definitely aren't alone in feeling that frustration. I mean, the initial honeymoon phase of enterprise AI is officially over.
Yeah.
The data is finally catching up to that gut intuition that, something just isn't working.
Exactly. So today we're going to unpack exactly why that disconnect is happening and obviously how to fix it. We're building this deep dive on a stack of incredible research today. It's anchored heavily by content from Scott Wise and his AI for Leaders program.
Yeah, specifically his core article, The Dormant AI Capability Hiding in Plain Sight.
Right. And to back up his operational frameworks, we also have this massive new joint study from OpenAI and Harvard. They analyzed 1.5 million ChatGPT conversations. Plus, we're looking at a comprehensive research dossier on what the industry is calling the capability overhang.
And when you synthesize Scott Wise's frameworks with that massive new data set, a very clear, very stark picture emerges. I mean, it completely redefines what leadership actually looks like in this era.
Yeah, totally. So our mission today is to uncover the structural difference between organizations that are just aimlessly buying AI licenses and the ones that are actually using this technology to pull away from their competitors.
Which is a huge gap.
It really is. So let's start with the sheer scale of the crisis we're in right now. The research calls this the strategy execution gap. AI adoption is practically universal at this point, but actual measurable financial impact is incredibly rare.
It's the absolute definition of a strategic bottleneck. Analysts are calling this phenomenon pilot purgatory.
Pilot purgatory. I love that phrase.
Right, because what happens is that the vast majority of enterprise AI initiatives get stuck right between the proof of concept phase and full-scale production.
Yeah.
So a team will build this really cool toy in a sandbox environment. It wows everyone in a PowerPoint presentation.
Oh, everyone loves the PowerPoint.
Exactly. But the moment they try to plug it into the company's actual messy ERP system or their customer database, the whole thing just falls apart.
And the numbers on that failure rate are just hard to stomach. Data from IDC and MIT's Project Nanda show that 88 to 95% of enterprise generative AI pilots never reach production.
Never.
Never. And that MIT study found that 95% of organizations deploying generative AI saw zero measurable P&L impact. Zero.
Yeah, which is insane.
I imagine a lot of that is executives just wanting the PR win, right? Wanting to say, look, we use AI without actually wanting to do the messy, painful operational overhaul required to make it useful.
That is exactly what's driving this. It's performative innovation.
Yeah.
And the tolerance for that is evaporating fast. I mean, the abandonment rate for AI initiatives jumped from 17% in 2024 to 42% in 2025.
Wow, 42%?
Yeah, leaders are simply losing patience with science projects that don't generate cash.
But the research makes a critical distinction here, which is that the failure is almost never the AI model itself.
Right.
It's not that the technology isn't smart enough. It's the company's inability to integrate that intelligence into a live business process. Meanwhile, you have this tiny fraction of organizations, what BCG data calls future-built AI leaders.
And their numbers are wild.
They really are. These future-built companies are delivering 1.7 times higher revenue growth, 1.6 times higher EBIT margins, which is basically their raw operational profitability, before taxes and interest, and 3.6 times greater shareholder returns than the laggards.
The contrast is brutal. And if we look at the mechanics of why that gap exists, you really have to think about it like a physical infrastructure problem.
Okay, how so?
Well, it's kind of like a company buying an entire fleet of million-dollar high-performance sports cars for their staff.
Right, but they forgot to build any roads. So 95% of these amazing sports cars are just sitting in the corporate parking lot depreciating.
It's actually worse than that, honestly. That's like, so they are just doing donuts in the parking lot, occasionally crashing into each other. You have all this incredible horsepower, but absolutely no infrastructure to direct that power toward a profitable destination.
And the penalty for waiting to build those roads is compounding, because the future-built leaders who actually have roads are taking the profits from those AI efficiencies and reinvesting them into even better infrastructure.
Precisely. They're building wider highways and faster cars. The laggards aren't just slightly behind anymore, they are facing this rapidly widening, unbridgeable gap.
Yeah.
Every single quarter, they delay the hard operational work. The cost of catching up becomes exponentially higher.
So, if the financial stakes and the penalties for delay are really that high, it begs the question, why are so many smart, experienced Fortune 500 leaders failing to cross this gap? The sources point to a really dangerous misunderstanding of what success actually looks like.
Yeah, it all comes down to tracking the wrong metrics.
Exactly.
And this is where Scott Wise's framework is just so illuminating. He identifies this fatal confusion at the executive level between two completely different concepts, which are adoption and acceleration.
Okay, break those down for us.
So adoption is just buying the enterprise licenses, rolling them out, and tracking who logs in. Adoption gets you a slightly smarter, slightly faster search engine.
Right.
But acceleration is structurally changing the organization. It's building entirely new capabilities that literally did not exist before.
But because leaders are under massive pressure to show the board that they are doing, something with AI, we get the rise of what the research calls ghost metrics.
Ghost metrics.
Yeah. These are things like counting provision seats, or tracking the volume of API calls, or just counting how many pilots your innovation lab has completed.
Ghost metrics are so insidious because they signal activity, but they guarantee absolute zero bottom line impact.
Give me an example.
Take API call volume, for example. Technical teams love to put up a dashboard showing a massive spike in query volume and claim it as a huge success.
Look at all this usage.
Exactly. But if you actually look at the workflow, high volume often just means your employees are struggling. They are experiencing repetitive prompt failures. The system isn't understanding them, so they have to ask the same question 20 times to get a usable answer.
Wow, so it's like bragging about how many times your employees had to hit the refresh button on a broken internal web page.
Exactly. It's not a business win, it's a compute tax.
But I have to push back a little here on behalf of the leaders listening, because I hear the critique, but if I'm a CEO, I'm thinking, don't I need people to actually log in before they can build anything?
Sure.
So why is tracking seats provisioned actually dangerous rather than just being like an incomplete metric?
It's a fair question, but it's dangerous because ghost metrics actively incentivize leaders to ignore the hard work.
Yeah.
If a leader's bonus is tied to whether 80% of the company has access to the tool, they distribute the logins, check the box, declare victory, and move on.
Ah, I see.
Deloitte's findings are really telling on this exact point. While worker access to AI rose by 50% recently, only 34% of leaders were actually redesigning jobs or workflows. Giving someone a login doesn't change the business unless you systematically change how the business operates.
Which leads right into this fascinating and honestly kind of terrifying phenomenon the research calls the BYOAI gap, bring your own AI, and the resulting donut hole.
The donut hole is such a great visual.
It really is. So the data shows 75% of knowledge workers use AI at work, and 78% of them are bringing their own personal tools to do it. Yet 60% of leaders admit their company lacks an actual plan.
Yeah, so the donut hole visual is the perfect way to understand corporate AI right now. Imagine a donut.
Okay.
The C-suite at the top is buying the vision, making grand speeches, and writing massive checks. The junior staff at the very bottom are using AI natively to just survive their jobs.
Right. They're running shadow AI on their personal accounts on their phones, summarizing massive PDFs, quietly saving themselves 3 hours a day.
Exactly. Yeah. But the middle management is completely hollowed out and stalled.
Because middle management is responsible for the actual formal workflows. They can't just hack together a personal workaround. They have to maintain the enterprise systems.
Exactly. And they are completely paralyzed. They are paralyzed by fear of job replacement, a lack of explicit permission from the top, and the very real risk of what the industry calls AI debt.
AI debt. The sources mention that term in conjunction with something called vibe coding. Walk us through what that actually means in practice.
So vibe coding is this new slang term for when a non-technical employee essentially just chats with an AI,
Yeah.
nudging it and coaxing it in plain English until it spits out a makeshift software script or like a complex Excel macro.
Okay, so they're coding by vibes.
Right. Now, that script might work beautifully today for one specific task,
Yeah.
but it's completely undocumented, it doesn't follow corporate security protocols, and it's incredibly fragile.
Ah.
The moment the company tries to scale that solution to another department, or IT updates the core operating system, that vibe-coded script just breaks.
And that broken, unscalable mess is AI debt.
Exactly. And middle managers are terrified of accumulating it.
So if middle managers are paralyzed by the fear of breaking data pipelines and executives are blinded by ghost metrics, how do we actually build an environment where teams can experiment safely?
Well, to escape this trap, the Anchor article argues we need a completely new mental model for where the value actually lives inside a company today.
Which is a huge shift.
It's the biggest paradigm shift of the decade. I mean, historically, for the last 40 years, technology value lived almost exclusively with the IT department.
Right.
The technologists had all the leverage because they were the only ones who knew how to write the code to build the systems. Everyone else, the salespeople, the marketers, the operators, they just had to wait in line for the 18-month IT roadmap to get anything built.
But generative AI has flipped that paradigm entirely on its head. The unique value doesn't live with the technologist anymore. It lives with the domain expert.
Yes. The seasoned sales leader who knows the exact psychological trigger that causes a client to close a deal. The supply chain manager who knows intuitively where the seasonal bottlenecks are going to happen before they ever show up on a spreadsheet.
Right, the financial analyst with 15 years of hard-earned operational intuition. That pure business logic is where the value is now.
Exactly. And this brings us to the core concept of Scott Wise's research, which is the capability overhang.
The capability overhang.
Yeah. The idea is that the technology we already have today is capable of far, far more than organizations are currently asking it to do.
I mean, every Fortune 500 company has access to the exact same model.
Right. The real competitive moat isn't signing a contract for the newest, shiniest AI model. The moat is your ability to convert your employees' specific, nuanced domain expertise into persistent, scalable AI workflows.
Which is amazing because it represents this massive compression of capability creation. Like what used to require a 6-month IT roadmap, a dedicated $250,000 budget, and a whole team of software developers can now be prototyped by that supply chain manager in a single afternoon.
Wow.
But wait, I have to stop you there. Are we seriously suggesting that a 50-year-old supply chain director needs to become a software developer overnight? Because that sounds like the exact recipe for the chaotic AI debt and vibe coding we were just warning people about.
No, it's a crucial distinction, and the answer is absolutely not. We aren't asking them to become coders.
Okay, phew.
This is where organizations are adopting the centralized AI studio model, which is guided by what BCG calls the 10-20-70 principle.
The 10-20-70 principle.
Right. Think of it this way. Only 10% of AI success is the actual algorithm. 20% is the underlying technology and data foundation. But 70% is the people and process transformation.
So the central organization handles the 30%, the algorithm, and the data guardrails.
Precisely. The central IT team provides a secure, governed AI studio environment. They clean the data, they set up the security firewalls, they basically build the safe roads.
Right.
Then the domain expert brings their business logic, which is the 70%.
But what does injecting business logic actually look like on, a Tuesday afternoon? Are they just typing out a massive 5-page prompt? Because that still sounds incredibly fragile.
Let's stick with the supply chain manager. They don't write Python. They log into this secure, company-approved AI studio interface. They upload their existing vendor criteria, their historical pricing matrices, and their delay histories. That is their business logic.
Okay.
Then they instruct the AI using plain English menus and logic trees. Like, when an invoice comes in from this specific region and it shows a shipping delay of over 2 days, automatically flag it and cross-reference it with this backup vendor list to find an alternative.
Wow.
They're defining the strict operational rules based on 15 years of human intuition, and the AI Studio translates that into secure, scalable code in the background. No vibe coding required.
That is a massive distinction. The human provides the strategy, and the system writes the syntax. But if domain experts truly have all this power at their fingertips right now, what are they actually doing with it? Because the data reveals a massive utilization gap. Let's look at that OpenAI and Harvard study. They analyzed 1.5 million real-world ChatGPT conversations to see what people are actually typing into the box.
Yeah, the scale of that study is unprecedented, and the findings are honestly sobering.
Yeah.
It highlights what researchers call the smarter Google problem. Out of those 1.5 million conversations, roughly 80% of all enterprise usage falls into just three highly basic categories: practical guidance, seeking information, and writing.
And here's the kicker. 2/3 of that writing category is just users asking the AI to edit or reformat text they already wrote themselves.
Right. It's crazy.
So the data absolutely proves the dormant capability Scott Wise is talking about. We have invented the most powerful reasoning and decision support engine in human history, and 80% of the time, we're basically just using it as an overgrain spell checker for our emails.
Yeah, that is the exact definition of what the research calls exposure without readiness. The AI is fully capable of complex, multi-step reasoning, but users are entirely focused on refining existing, low-level work rather than building new, high-level capabilities.
But the data also shows us where the real gold mine is, right? It's in
Yeah.
something called the universal decision layer.
Yes.
When the Harvard researchers mapped the ChatGPT usage to actual Department of Labor work activities, this fascinating pattern emerged. Making decisions and solving problems ranked as the #1 or #2 most critical activity across literally every single occupation group, from executive management all the way down to food service.
Right. It completely shifts our understanding of what AI is actually for. It shows that AI's primary role at work isn't just generating marketing copy or writing code. Its highest value is decision support, which makes up 18% of the work, and complex information synthesis, which is 45%.
It is a universal operational advisor.
Exactly. And the people who have figured this out are leaving everyone else in the dust. The research identifies this massive frontier worker gap.
The frontier workers, yes.
These frontier users, the top 5% of AI adopters in a company, they aren't just using the tool a little bit more than their peers. They're operating in a different universe.
They really are. They send 6 times more messages than the median worker. They send 17 times more coding and analysis messages. And they actively use 7 times more advanced thinking capabilities within the models.
And it completely destroys the excuse that the technology isn't ready. This proves the technology is absolutely not the bottleneck.
No.
Human imagination and corporate leadership permission are the bottlenecks. The capability overhang is real. The tools are sitting there waiting to be used. And those frontier workers are the only ones currently closing the gap.
Okay, so we've thoroughly diagnosed the illness here. Now we need the prescription. What is the immediate practical playbook for the executive or manager listening right now who wants to move their team out of this purgatory from simple adoption to actual acceleration like this week?
The sources outline 3 highly specific operational actions. Action 1 is to locate the dormant capability.
Okay.
You need to look across your organization and find the exact intersection where domain expertise is the absolute deepest, but the daily workflow design is the most manual and painful. That specific person at that specific intersection is exactly who you should be empowering to build AI capabilities, not just passively use them.
That makes total sense. You follow the friction, find the pain point where the intuition lives, and arm that person.
Exactly.
Action 2 is about removing fear and friction. The research shows that workers are inherently protective of their institutional knowledge. They are scared AI is going to replace them, or they are just scared they're going to break a compliance rule and get fired. Leaders have to stop adding more generic theater training and start giving workers explicit authority and a safe environment to experiment on real work.
Theater training is exactly the right term for it. Putting your staff through a generic, mandatory webinar on how to write a better prompt is just theater.
Right.
If they aren't explicitly given the authority to permanently change their own daily workflow, the training is completely useless. And that leads to Action 3, which is to change the core leadership question. Leaders have to immediately stop asking their managers how many people on your team are using AI. That is a ghost metric.
Right. It just encourages them to mandate logins.
Exactly. Instead, every executive should start every quarterly review by asking, what new operational capabilities have we built in the last 90 days that we fundamentally could not have built before?
Oh, that's a great reframe.
Yeah.
But let me ask the tough operational question here. If I'm an executive giving all this authority to my supply chain managers and sales leaders to build new workflows, how do I avoid creating that chaotic Wild West we talked about? Like, who actually owns this, IT or operations? I want them to experiment, but I don't want them breaking our enterprise architecture.
It is the most critical tension in enterprise AI right now.
Hmm.
And the research addresses this by contrasting two distinct leadership models, the scrambler approach versus the strategist approach.
Okay.
The scramblers just buy every new standalone tool immediately. They let every department buy whatever software they want, and they create massive, fragmented technical debt.
And the strategist.
The strategist approach, which is what the future-built leaders use, is to centralize the infrastructure, but strictly decentralize the innovation.
Centralize infrastructure, decentralize innovation. So build the foundation, then let the experts scale the solution.
Exactly. IT owns the foundation. They provide the centralized AI-ready data, the security protocols, and the governance that Secure AI Studio we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
That absolutely protects the enterprise from risk. But operations owns the innovation. You decentralize the actual workflow creation out to the very edges of the company, giving the domain experts the keys to build whatever they need as long as they stay within those centrally managed safe guardrails.
To sum this all up, Scott Wise's central premise really hits home. Capability without readiness is just exposure.
Yeah.
The technology is already here. It's capable of far more than we are currently asking of it. And the most important part, the domain expertise you need to unlock it is already on your payroll.
It really is.
It is sitting right now in the heads of your best managers, your best salespeople, and your best analysts. It is entirely a leadership decision to connect the two.
The competitive divide over the next 24 to 36 months will not be between companies that have AI and companies that don't. Everyone will have it.
Right.
The divide will be between the leaders who actively empower their domain experts to build new workflows with it and the leaders who stayed stuck in purgatory tracking login metrics.
Absolutely. If you are a leader and you want to dig deeper into these frameworks, direct your browser to scottwise.ai to find more AI for leaders, content, and resources.
It's definitely worth checking out.
Thank you so much for joining us on this Amplified Impact Deep Dive. We're going to leave you with this final thought to mull over as you look at your own teams this week. If your most experienced, intuitive domain expert resigned tomorrow, how much of their hard-earned operational intuition would be permanently lost simply because you never gave them the permission, the safety, and the tools to encode it into your organization's AI?